What's up, everybody? This is Herschel from High School Top 200, and this is the Monday morning meeting. Welcome, everybody, back for another one this week. If you're new to this, please like, subscribe, share this with all your friends. Make sure that they know that there is a place where you can go to get First 15 content, especially for here in New Zealand where we really don't have that much stuff. So let everyone know that there's High School Top 200, HS Top200.com as well, $5 subscription. It's not free. The wording is stupid, I know. That was not me. I am trying to take care of it, but gotta save a bit of the pingers so I can pay for that to get changed as well. But $5 subscription for a month. All the information that you'll need from high school rugby around the country, and also, just be able to support First 15 rugby, something that we don't really have here in New Zealand. Sorry about my eyes. I know I look high, but it's just my contact lenses. It's terrible. I wear glasses. I always looked like a real nerd when I was back in the days, but this big brown islander nerd fella with my glasses. At one point I had we had no money, but at one point I had the handle of my glasses was broken. I only had one, and my glasses were like this all the time because I only had one. I couldn't get it fixed. We just didn't have the money. But yeah, I was like this big ass nerd looking fella. Not smart, not at all. My grades didn't reflect the nerd, but my look did. But that's why I look like I'm high. It looks like my eyes are like glassy eyes, but it's really just my contact lenses. But this is probably going to be a short one. I don't know, I always say it's a short one, but then I always have a lot to say about stuff. But if you're new to this, make sure you go to Instagram, like, subscribe, comment. Make sure you share your thoughts and everything with me. Ask questions if you want, and I'll try and answer them for you as well. If I don't answer, it's probably because I'm real busy, because I am the only one that does this. I don't have a team with me to, do the editing and do the write-ups and do the research and information and traveling. All that kind of stuff. I do that all myself and gather all my own information about First 15 rugby, and so it does take a long time for me to get back to answering people. So sometimes on here, I just answer questions on here from people that I read. Like this up one person, right? They asked on, I think it was one of the YouTube comments, and they mentioned how many players from the CNI have made the All Blacks, and if that was a reflection on the CNI as a competition, where it's cool and fun to sort of think that way. Remember, it's fun to think that that's the reason why is if you play in the CNI, then you're most likely to be an All Black, because you got the most numbers in there right now. If you look at how many schools and stuff come from the CNI and how many of them are in the All Blacks, it's cool because CNI is an up-and-coming competition. You'd like to think that that's the reason why, but it's not. Not at all. Not at all. I don't think any school reflects on you becoming an All Black at all. There's no right school to go to guarantee that you've got a better shot at becoming an All Black. Most of the time, it's just so that going to a better school for rugby or that gets you into a better position to learn the most, to be seen the most, to be talked about the most. And most of you guys know on here anyway, it's just I talk about the CNI all the time. And I've even and this year, the CNI competition is the best competition to watch this year and to follow this year, because everyone has lost a game. Everyone's going to lose 2 games. Like I said, everyone's going to lose 2 games, at least. And trying to get into that top 4 of the CNI is so freaking hard. It definitely has a lot of advantages in terms of being able to play these big games. And Whanganui as well, who's leading that, lost to Wellington College last week and lost the quad to Wellington College, and they should have actually beaten Wellington College. But even them, losing to Wesley, they almost lost the first game of the CNI. They probably should have lost the first game of the CNI. St. John's just went to sleep, and Whanganui scored a try in the last minute, and won at home with I think combined score of 80 something. They both scored 40 points or somewhere around that, something massive, So that competition alone is the most exciting to watch this year. But in terms of what school or what competition that you go to, and if it has an effect of you becoming an All Black or being, have better chances of becoming an All Black, it's that. To me, that's got nothing to do with it at all. Because most of the time it comes down to, a lot of the time, the individual at the end of the day, the individual is the ones that, you're the one that gets you there. It's kind of, and let's take away injuries that have definitely ruined careers, ruined what could have been. Definitely injuries is just one of those kind of things, but the individual at the end of the day is the one that really it gets you there. They're the ones that choose whether they want to put in that extra work. They're the ones that choose whether they want to take that risk, that want to hit that rock extra hard, that want to make that extra tackle, that want to, put in that extra effort, either at night or in the morning. They're the ones that choose whether they want to stay at home or if they want to sort of go to a different place. They're the ones that choose to do that kind of stuff. And so to me, it's got nothing to do with school, or it's got nothing to do with competition. That's just a cool, look at what, look how much we've got in there. And in all fairness, you got three brothers from one school. I would say, I'd be more interested as if that was the case, if you go, oh, well, Francis Douglas is the place to go to school if you want to become an All Black, because look at the Barretts. Go look at the Barretts. It's well, that doesn't tell me that Francis Douglas is the best place to go to school to become an All Black. That means that you should marry a Barrett or be a Barrett. If fathers wanted an All Black and that was the thing, it's you get your daughters to go, hey, go hit it on those fellas. Because then you might have an All Black grandchild. I don't think it's got anything to do with Francis Douglas. I just think it's got to do with, are you a Barrett? If that was the case, but I mean, they just got good genes, I guess. They were just raised in I don't know, the advantage of training together. They have the advantage of growing up together. They have the advantage of good genes from their mum and dad and the way that they were raised, things like that. That's just them. I think if anything, that just proves that if you were a Barrett, you got a pretty good chance of becoming All Black. If that was the case, it was just you might as well marry a Tuilangi. Then you have the best chance of becoming a big professional player and playing international rugby. So to me, it's there's not really an argument of what school you go to that becomes, it gives you a better chance to becoming, All Black or, anything like that. But if you put it in a list, it's pretty cool to see the CNI being on top of something like that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know, but I mean, if you were to make an advertisement of trying to get kids to go to CNI schools, I would probably lead off with that. I would look at Samasonia Tokeau and go, yeah, he went to St. Paul's. And then, Sam Whitelock and Aaron Smith and Cody Taylor all going to Fielding, Barrett boys and that going to, Francis Douglas. I would look at those kind of guys and go, yeah. Look at Tupou and go, yeah, he was at Wesley. All CNI schools. All guys that are in the All Blacks. But I mean, I don't know. It's fun to say. It's fun to think that, but I don't think it has any kind of bearings on it. Not at all. That was one of the questions that was asked of me and it's a lot to write out, and for me to write out long-winded, I guess, answers like that, and I said I'd rather just talk about it instead of write all of that down. It's like I'm sure I'm getting arthritis on my fingers just from friggin' typing everything, but yeah, those are just one of those kind of questions. The other one's just like, is it fair to say that Hamilton's the best school in the past 10 years that I've been doing high school top 200, and like it's 100% yes. They're the best school since I've been doing high school top 200, and probably be before. With multiple national titles, multiple titles in the Super 8. I don't know how. I think I did the numbers on how many New Zealand secondary schools they had since 10 years ago, and I can't remember the number I came up with, but them and St. Kentigern's have the most New Zealand secondary school players. I think there was only 1 year that Hamilton boys did not have a New Zealand secondary school players in the 10 years that I've been doing high school top 200, and so there's a lot to it. Like there's a lot to Hamilton boys being the reason of them being probably the best school since doing high school top 200, and probably with the best coach, best high school coach of all time that I would vouch for 100% is Nigel, and then you'd have to chuck Greg in there as well. So it's just one. I don't know. Yeah, it's just one of those kind of things. But speaking of Hamilton, and like, I'm glad that we get to have this conversation again as well, because it does give. The more I talk about it, and so that more people know of how this works. And remember, this is all opinion-based stuff. Mine's just more valid than anybody else's, because I follow this so intensely, and I put a lot of work into this, and I put a lot of thought, and the fact that I follow these kids from year 11 when they make first 15, or whenever they make first 15. Sometimes a few occasions there's like year 10s that make the first 15, but I follow them all the way through, and so me watching them develop and knowing what kind of player they are and what kind of player they've become and where they've come from, I have a more informed, I guess, opinion of why they are ranked where they are and where they're kind of going. And I'm glad we get to have this conversation, because we will most likely have another new number one team in the country, from Sacred Heart to now Hamilton Boys. Because Hamilton Boys lost, there has to be some change. Like, you got to give some the reward for that win, and you got to take something away even for that loss. And like I've said before, not every loss and not every win is the same. For example, Sacred Heart losing to St. Kentigern's, and I was there for the game. That reward of them, of St. Kentigern's winning, knocking Sacred Heart off the number one spot, then moving ahead and dropping St. Kentigern's back, dropping Sacred Heart back behind St. Kentigern's. That was like a ranking of number one versus number four, so close together. Not much points between those two. Hamilton Boys and Westlake between those two teams of Sacred Heart and St. Kentigern's. So, when you do have that loss, moving that team behind them a few spots is realistic. And that's something that you can see happening. Because again, the strength of the schedule of a 1A team against a 1A team has a lot of advantages, because you get to match up with better teams week in and week out. When you have a win and when you have a loss, those things matter because of the teams that you play week in, week out. It's the strength of the teams. Like, you play really good teams every single week for most of the weeks that you play. You have about 4 or 5 top 25 teams that you play every single week. Top 25 teams, and then most likely every team that you're going to be playing is in the top 50 in the country. The Super 8 is the same. You're going to play a top 25 team 6 weeks out of the 8-week competition that you have. 6 of them are going to be ranked in the top 25. 6 of them might even be ranked in the top 15. And maybe only 1 or 2 of them might be ranked in the top 50, but they're still in the top 50, and they might even be in the top 30. So the strength of your schedule of who you're playing is going to be way tougher than what you would in another competition. Like, if you look at college basketball and college football over in the States, and the way that they talk about their rankings, the way they do their rankings, is kind of how I've modeled it, is that, like, especially in basketball for NCAA, is that if you go to an ACC team, like where Duke and North Carolina is, like those kind of schools, they play top 25 national ranking teams a lot more than another one, saying like Conference USA, or the Big 12, or anything like that, or even the Pac-12. But then when it comes to football, you would definitely go to a conference where if you had to play Alabama or LSU or South Carolina, or like those kind of teams, it's going to be harder. Like, if you play in the ACC, it's going to be harder in football. So when you start looking at all your teams in a row of who you've played, and even if you've won and lost a few games, those losses mean a lot more too, because it's just like, we lost to a big team. We didn't lose to a stink team. We lost to a team who was really, really good. That's why the CNI this year is such a good competition, because all those teams are really, really strong. So even if they lose a game, you're just like, no, but they lost to a really good team, who also beat a really good team, who also lost to another really good. So like in the CNI, you've got like 5 or 6 teams that are in the top 25, because they're such a good competition. Let's talk about Francis Douglas, who is such a good team, who took apart St. Bernard's from the Wellington competition with pretty much ease. I don't want to step on them in any kind of way, but they did it with ease. And Francis Douglas is not even in the top 6 in that competition. They would struggle to win 2 games at a time, depending on what their schedule is going to be. And if poor Francis Douglas, they have to play Whanganui Collegiate, they have to play St. John's Hamilton, they have to play Wesley, St. Paul's Collegiate, St. Peter's School. They have to play, Whanganui. They have to play, such hard teams, and then even Lindisfarne, even a team like Lindisfarne, who a lot of people won't know, is still not an easy team to beat. And Francis Douglas, when you look at their record, you're like, they've lost heaps of games. It's like, but look at who they've played. Opposed to someone like St. Bernard's, who in Wellington get a lot of easier games, And you look at their record, you're like, but their record's way better than, say, what Francis Douglas said. Yeah, but they don't play that many good teams like Francis Douglas. So, like, they take them apart. And then, like, this is where the argument kind of goes, and where you have to look at these different things. Is like, yes, Wellington College beat Whanganui. Caught them on the right day. Caught them at a bad moment. They took on the big stage of the quad, which was like so exciting, which was cool. The school was all there. And in that moment and in that game, Wellington College knew how to handle that situation. Whanganui just didn't. Now, Wellington's not better than Whanganui. If they play today, Whanganui's like going to drop 25 on them, maybe even 30. And when Wellington beat Whanganui Collegiate, Wellington doesn't jump all the way to the top 25 or even to the, or doesn't swap places with Whanganui just because they beat them. It's just not how it works. It's not a realistic telling of what the story is in First 15 rugby. And that's how you kind of explain these things. So the reason why I'm explaining this is because we have like new people here all the time. We have new people in high school top 200 because we have new parents that come along as year 11s. They go wondering, what's this all about? So I have to explain it every single year, sometimes 2 times a year, just because people don't always listen. People just don't know about this, but I explain it this way. Now, Napier beating Hamilton Boys. Do I think Napier is a better team than Hamilton Boys? No, not at all. You're missing Kalis Tupoko and Putoko and Ollie Mathis, who are 2 New Zealand secondary school players, and they weren't there on the day. In a muddy day, in a terrible day, Napier just knew how to play it and they won. If they played again, I don't think so. But that's not Napier's problem. That's Hamilton Boys' problem. Hamilton Boys should have won the game that they should have won. Napier were trying to win the game that they should have won, that they were scheduled to play. We know that we're not better than them. We're the underdogs. But this is sports. Underdogs win all the time. And that's what happened yesterday, is that they won the game. They do not take that spot of number 1 spot, but Hamilton Boys should lose that number 1 spot. That's what happens to a number 1 team in the country, is that if you can't win these games, if you can't win all the games, then something has to happen. I can't just like sit back and go, well, I still think they're better. I was like, yeah, that's fine. But if a team's going to lose a game, there has to be something to it. Something has to change from it. So, for me, in the way that I'm thinking, just so that everyone knows this is how I'm thinking, is that Hamilton Boys are probably not going to fall out of the top 5. Scots College is not going to move up to number 1, based on the strength of the schedule, even when they did beat Silverstream. And like I've explained before, is that Scots College and Westlake Boys have the same problem, and that's that the teams that they play are just not as good, and they don't show a caliber of competition that a number 1 team reflects. Westlake Boys played Manurewa and scored 107 points or 5 points. They played a basketball game. That's basically what they did. And they've scored 60 points 2 times. I think they have a 70-point game. Something like that. But like, if you look at scores like that, and that's what I'm saying. This is not their problem either. But I'm saying that like, you're gonna have a good win-loss record, and Westlake's not gonna lose a game this year. Now, if I wanted like let's say South Africa, who do the same thing I do in terms of ranking schools. If I wanted South Africa, this to look good for South Africa, I would go, oh yeah, let's just have Westlake at number 1 so that we can have this perfect team, be at the top of the New Zealand competition, and then go, oh yeah, we've got this perfect team here in New Zealand. They're not going to lose a game. They've been smashing everyone. But not explain the context and go, they just don't play anyone of worth. Like Massey High School, who was a really good school and a really good rugby school, and they've sort of been on the edge every single week of making the top 25. They are somewhat 21 points away, 16 to 21 points away from Westlake boys. They can hang around for a bit, but they're not going to push them. And that's their competition. That's the number 2 on their in their competition is 16 to 21 points away from beating Westlake boys. Like, that's not a cool reflection of the competition that you play in. And that's not Westlake boys' fault, not at all. And this is where the argument comes into it. It's just like, oh no, like, they've got to start, I mean, it's kind of late because everyone's within their seasons, but I kind of saw it against New Plymouth boys just the other day, is that that first half was really, really close. Westlake adapted, turned up the speed, and then all that scoring came in the second half. But that first half they struggled. Now, if they played in the Super 8, or even the 1A, or even in the CNI, I don't think Westlake boys would come out so sluggish. But those boys know, because they've been on such a winning streak and by massive margins, oh, we can make this back. It just takes a little bit for us to get into it. Like, you don't really have the luxury in 1A and in Super 8 to do that. Now, I think that Westlake boys need to have some like midweek games against some hard schools, and like that's going to be hard. That's a hard ask. But if that was me, I would ask St. Kentigern's and ask Sacred Heart, who do you guys have up this week? Is it someone that you guys are keen that you can easily beat them? Because if it is, let's play on Wednesday. We need to stay sharp. I know you guys need to stay sharp. But let's play on Wednesday. Let's have a good hit out. Because like the other thing that Auckland have to do is that, and I'm talking more about St. Kentigern's and Sacred Heart, is like they've got to watch out for Westlake boys too. But they have the advantage of playing in the 1A where they're going to get hard games almost every single week. But at the same time, they need to beat Westlake boys. And this is the first time I've actually had this kind of discussion in this whole 10 years, is that Westlake could go as the Blues representative to the top 4 2 years in a row. Last year was a surprise. This year it's not. And I know the guys at Sacred Heart watch this page. I know that Sacred Heart follow this a top 200. I know that St. Kentigern's follow top 200. I know that they watch my page. I know that they listen to what I say, and they know as well how good Westlake boys is, and they don't want to lose that. They don't want to lose this, and this is not, and they know that Westlake boys is a legitimate team. This is not one of those things where they look at them and go, you're just playing in North Harbour, you guys, do this all the time. It's like, I know Sacred Heart and St. Kentigern's and even St. Peter's in a way are all looking at them and going, oh no, this is different. We have to actually play really good even after our finals. And we don't have an excuse of going, oh, well, we play in a harder competition that no one cares about that. You still have to play them. No one's going to give you like this added advantage because you play in a harder competition. No, that's kind of the benefit of playing on a harder competition. You're going to be ready for this. You just have to keep that energy longer past the 1A, which is the problem that 1A schools have. They think, oh yeah, I'm going to win the 1A. After that, we'll just relax because that's our goal. Where the rest of the country is like, oh no, our goal is to be number one in the country. Not number one in our area. Who cares about that? I want to be number one in the whole country. Westlake Boys is looking at like, no, we want to be number one in the country. We don't care about our competition. We're going to win that. And we're going to focus on that Blues game that comes after. And then we're going to carry that momentum onto the national championship. 1A schools, for some reason, think that once they've won the 1A, that, oh, yeah, we're the best in the world. I was like, cut it out, man. What are you guys on? I was like, you never heard of Hamilton Boys or Scots College or like Nelson College or Christchurch Boys or Target Boys? It's like, bro, there's heaps of good schools around the country. Hastings and Napier are right there too. Like, what are you guys talking about? Confuses me a lot. That Auckland think once you win Auckland, it's like, yeah, no, like, we've done it. And I was like, no, you haven't. It's like, what? You've beat six of the best teams in the country. Okay, what about the other 30 that are around there that could also beat you too? Never understood it. But anyway, they have a legitimate shot of going back as a Blues representative of the national top four, and Sacred Heart and St. Kennigan's and St. Peter's, Auckland Grammar, Calston, they all have to watch out for that. Calston know 100%, oh no, we can't have this again. Because it snuck up on Calston, and I was there for that game too. Calston didn't take that seriously. And I know that the boys are going to tell me differently, but I was at the game. It didn't look like the Calston that I was used to watching. They took it for granted that they were just going to win. And I remember even hearing parents on the sideline stopping their boys from, having a fight with them because they lost on their home ground. And the parents were even yelling to them saying, this is your guys' fault. You guys didn't play like you guys should have been playing. And it even confirmed to me because I was on the side and I go, well, this doesn't look like Galston. This is not how they've been playing all year. This is not why they won the national their 1A championship. And just 1 week removed, they just it just looked like they took it for granted. This year, 100%, those big teams in Auckland are not taking Westlake Boys for granted, and they know by following my page and knowing exactly what those guys can do, they're not going to let that go again. But Westlake Boys have to stay sharp. The New Plymouth game showed me that they're having problems keeping that same energy, and it's not their fault. It's not their fault because it's hard for a team to just run over teams and just keep that enthusiasm up when you know that we're going to win. I just don't know by how much, but we're going to win. I know it's going to be by more than 2 tries. And I'm guessing training must be pretty hard too, because with that same attitude, because it must be hard just to motivate the boys. Hey, you really got to get up for Rangitoto. I was like, Rangitoto, what? Talking to us about Rangitoto? About Orewa? Like Takapuna? To me, it's like, if they looked at Takapuna, to me, and there's not me trying to have a go at Takapuna, not at all. But it's like, all right, we'll take care of Hayden, we'll take care of Liam. Then we'll run the rest, as usual. It's like, let's just take care of Liam so he doesn't get those big bursting runs that he gets, and he doesn't manhandle a bunch of us and on the way to the try line. It's like, let's lock him down, let's lock Hayden down. It's just like, okay, done deal. Massey is like the same. It's like, yeah, done deal. We'll just take care of those fellas. And we'll just run through our motions. And that's that's what I can see that these guys are thinking of, like, oh no, we don't have to worry. It's like, it's fine. If we have a slow start, we'll pick it up in the second half. It's like, let's just give James the ball. Where's James? It's like, let's just give him the ball. See what he does. Tiger, let's just keep this running. Tap everything, Tiger. Let's go. It's like things like that. And I hope the coaching staff find different ways to motivate their boys. And that's going to be a hard thing. It's not easy. It's not going to be easy for Westlake coaching staff to motivate their boys to keep this energy up and keep it going right to the end. Because you can get stuck in those moments of, it's all right, man, it's all right. Done deal. It's like, we give them an easy 30 points, 40 points on a slow day. Whereas Hamilton boys have to fight, Napier boys have to fight, Hastings boys have to fight, Kelson have to fight, St. Peter's have to fight, Auckland Grammar, De La Salle are all fighting almost every single week. And they just sharpen up. And Scots College are in the same boat with Westlake boys, and they're just like, it's all right, man. You know, it's like, we'll just give it to Sione. Sione, you run it up. We'll give it to, Yeti, go just, bump up a couple guys. Let's make some breaks. Score. Give it to Zion. We'll start scoring. What's wrong? We just give it to Harry, man. Like, it's fine. But that will catch up to you. It really will. And making number one, so if I take Hamilton boys down, right? Hamilton boys out of the top spot. Is it going to be Westlake boys, or is it going to be St. Kennigan's? If it's Westlake boys, they're not moving from number one. They're finishing the year as number one. Hamilton boys will have to win every single game by 40 points for me to go, man, I just got to put them back up. Sacred Heart will kind of have to do the same. St. Kennedy's as well. But Westlake boys will not move from that spot. And maybe they do deserve to be number one. But is it ever going to be challenged? Because come the end of August and we get into semi-finals times and everyone's competitions are finished and everyone's going for regions, the rankings stop and the rankings remain and hold the last, sort of the last week of August and go, this is who we've got. And this is how the season finished. As whoever is number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, going onwards until we have the national championship, and then we find out who the best team in the country is. But do I make Westlake number one and then end the story there? Because they're not going to move from number one if I make them number one. St. Kennigan still have a chance of losing and changing it again. I could do the easy thing and just make Westlake boys number one and go, yeah, I don't have to change it now because I know that they're just going to run through and stay unbeaten. And have that as my excuse of they're going to be unbeaten. I want to make it look good, but is it right? It's probably not. Because if I had to choose, I would say Hamilton boys is probably still the number 1 team in the country. They had just had a loss. It just happens. But I'm in that situation where you guys it's no, because you have to, man. You have to reward those Napier boys. Napier boys have to move up. They're not going to take the number 1 spot, and they're not going to be in the top 5 just because they won that game. So many variables on why they won that game, but they still won the game and you still move them up. But at the same time, it's just I have to change it in some way. You have to show that you get rewarded for your wins and you sort of get punished for your losses. And so that's kind of the discussion that I've been sort of going through in my mind of, so what happens from here on? What happens now? Who do I look for as my number 1 team in the country? Just one of those kind of situations, I guess. Anyways, I know, I guess we'll find out. I think girls right. I put out my girls, my personal selection for New Zealand secondary school girls. And obviously people are going to have problems with it. And everyone's going to disagree with it. And that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to disagree with what I put out. You're supposed to look at it and go, no, Hirsch, because there's this girl in this here, she's killing it. She should be in that team. Another person saying, no, there's this other girl here. She's killing it. She's also, that good. She should be in this team. And I just really want, and I think we really need to get our under 18s to the point where they have a Chiefs under 18s and under 18s Blues, under 18s Hurricanes, even the Crusaders and the Highlanders. I don't think they should be together. They should be separate. There's some good girls down there, Wakatipu's got some good girls. South Otago's got some good girl players down there. St. Hilda's, Otago girls, they have, I wouldn't want to put the Highlanders and the Crusaders together when they have these selections, but I think they need to have these set up. And the way that I see it, right? Because I had, at the end, when I looked at heaps of girls and I thought, okay, how was I going to do this? I just went through every girl's roster I could find. And this is how I did it, right? So what I did is that I went through all the girls' rosters that I could find. In every competition in New Zealand, I found as many rosters as I could find. I also found as many rosters as I could find from last year, and I kind of already accumulated what I had last year anyway, from a bunch of teams, and I followed a bunch of teams week in and week out last year as well, and I found all the girls that made some rep sides and all that kind of stuff, and then I looked at all the rosters that I could find this year, and then found the girls who were consistently starting for their teams from North Harbour to Auckland to down here and the Manawa competition, the Wellington competition down in Christchurch, also in Otago, Manawa too, as I found some players too. I looked at everyone's rosters and seen how consistent these girls were as starters. Then I looked at girls that made rep teams last year and under 16s and under 18s, and I looked at if they came back to school again. And then I marked those girls all down and put them all on a list, and I go, okay, so what do these girls have done? And then I found the ones that were, I go, okay, so who were these girls? Did any of them make some kind of Farah Palmer Cup squads? Because you can do that as a year 12, be a part of those development for the Farah Palmer Cup teams. And I found, and even from last year, I found a bunch of girls that were all part of these squads for women's rugby, all still at high school. They were all still at high school. Like Sylvia came through the same way. And so I found all those girls, marked them all off, put them in a separate thing and go, okay, these are the girls here. And then I found as much footage as I could of everyone that was on those lists. And so I even went to club rugby. I found out if they were playing for their school as well as playing for club rugby. And then I went and found club rugby live streams, and I found the rosters, and I looked at the players, and I looked at those girls, and I go, okay, this year she's playing that number there, she's playing this number here, she's in this game. I looked at that roster, I go, okay, she's number this, and then I watched those games. And this is why some of this stuff took a lot longer for me, because I was actually watching club rugby games of women's teams to find all these girls and how they were playing. I found live stream of Auckland games, of Wellington games, and that's how I got my list and my team all together is that I actually watched them all play either in high school or in club rugby. And some of the girls actually played Wharepama Cup last year, and I watched some of their games from last year. And that's how I got my squad, and that's how I got my team and put them all together. Like, I watched actually all these girls play. Now, when I put all the big list and the last list together, I go, okay, these are all the girls that I want to select from. Because I watched them play, they've been in rep rugby, they've consistently started. Most of them have been playing first 15 since they were year 9 or year 10. And this is what they've done for their club side or for their first 15 or for their rep side. And then I go, all right, that last list of girls' names, I had about 60 of them. Up to about 60 names of those last girls that I wanted to choose from, that I chose a 30-girl squad out of the 60 that I had left. So something like 67. So all these girls that people were sort of nominating or telling me that they should have been there, is like, I know who they are. They just missed out on this 30-man squad. I didn't pick just 30 random names and go, hey, that's nice. These are girls that I actually saw and watched and got footage of them. Now, the reason why I bring this up is because, like, if I was able to do this, right, by myself, off my own time, and like I had this idea already from last year, and so I guess since about March, I've been finding and following all these players anyway. If I can do this by myself, with the resources that I just went out and looked, I didn't even ask people, hey, can you send me footage of this? Can you find this, like, things about this girl? Like, I never asked anyone anything. I just went out and found it myself. If I can do that, the rugby union's got to be able to do the same and match it. Match that same energy that I'm bringing with all these girls and finding these players and going, well, if Herschel did it, then we should be able to do it for our own region. The Chiefs should be able to, like, the Chiefs have got it good because they just like, oh, we've got the manual competition going anyway. Let's just pick a Chief squad out of this competition we have, and then pick out all these other girls from little schools around, Bay of Plenty and Manukau and stuff like that, and go, this is our under-18s Chiefs. Auckland need to do the same. But why is it that I can do this by myself, but New Zealand Rugby can't do that? And I don't care what they're like, they go, oh, we're trying to put these in place and put these in place and put these. It's like, I just did it by myself. You can put these things in place. Give them the resources so they can put this into motion. And here was my fear, is that NRL is already offering our girls money to move over from rugby to rugby league. And some of these girls are already taking it. And they've got such a good setup already done there. England and the Six Nations and that, they already have their under-18s playing each other in a good system. Meaning that they've already got to the point where they're choosing their their England secondary schools and Ireland secondary schools and French secondary schools. And we're still lacking behind. Can't even put a Blues team together. They can't even hold a Blues camp. And we think that we're going to be able to keep this same mystique and strength and tradition and history of rugby in New Zealand, and we can't even fix up a 26-girl team for the Blues and the Crusaders. And it's just like, I don't understand this. And I don't understand what they expect our girls to do to be able to represent the black jersey when you haven't set things up in high school for them. And the worst thing is that, and I've talked about this with the boys, is that there's a lot of boys that go straight from high school into the starting of the NPC. Or boys that go straight from high school and are on the bench for NPC. It's worse for the girls because they're playing at year 12. But you're asking them to go from first 15 to starting. Like Maya Davis, who was year 11 last year, played for the No.2 Turbos, for the women's team, for the Farah Palm Cup side as a year 11. She's playing again this year for year 12, and she's going to be playing again next year as a year 13. And like, for me, personally, she's probably going to be the number 1 player in the country next year as a year 12. Or as year 13, because she's had 3 years already of Farah Palmer Cup. But you're asking a year 11 girl to jump ahead that far. That's cool for her. But then that also tells me that high school don't have their own development, that they have to send her to the professional, the semi-professional side to go, oh, here you go. You have to learn with all these women. Like, well, hold on. Let's keep her in her age group. Let's keep her around her peers. Keep her with other girls around the country to go. Let's have Maya come up with another halfback from Christchurch or another halfback from Auckland or from Hamilton and go, oh yeah, we know each other because we've been together since we were year 11 playing against each other. And they already have that relationship even going into professional rugby. But don't make her train with the women because we have nothing set up for her. Telfa's the same. She's only year 12. She's in club rugby. She's starting club rugby. And this is Telfa Basin I'm talking about from fielding. And she has to go to, like, these are the other ones. And Milan's the same. The one that I picked as the starting halfback. She's from Epsom. And she was playing for College Rifles. And she also is trialing for the Bulldogs. But my thing is that, like, let's be so good in rugby union that she doesn't want to look at the Bulldogs. That's what I'm saying. Like, have things set up for her to want to stay. Have things set up for these girls that they want to stay. Because I can understand them with the NRL going, no, we got this mean set up here for all the girls. It's like, you guys can come in, we have all the trainings for you guys can live like professional players, we'll pay you the same, we'll pay you somewhat the same as the guys do, we'll have everything set up, while New Zealand rugby is lacking behind. Almost like, oh, do you want to play for the black jersey? Kind of what they were doing with the boys. This is like, no, we can't do that anymore. Everyone's already set up and they're all too far ahead. I'm just saying is that through my efforts, not being paid or anything, I was able to go out and find as much resources as I can to name a squad of girls from all over the country. I didn't just go to one school. Think about it this way, right? I could have just went to Christchurch girls, Manukura, Auckland girls, Hamilton girls, and who else do I want to throw in there? Probably Mags. And the 2 girls from St. Hilda's. I could have just taken like 5 or 6 schools and go, there's a New Zealand secondary school team. Because those schools are probably the top schools in the country, and I could have just grabbed those girls and go, here's my New Zealand secondary school team, and I've got like 4 girls from Manukura, 3 girls from St. Mary's, 5 from Hamilton girls, 4 from Auckland girls grammar, I'll take 3 Mags girls and put them all together and go, this is what the team is. And just been lazy about it, but I didn't. I put in a lot of work and I put in a lot of effort. And I just want that to be matched by those at New Zealand Rugby. And so that these girls can be fussed over and go, hey, you've been invited to a camp. This camp's going to take, this is going to be the under 18 girls Hurricanes camp. We're going to have a game against the Blues and the Chiefs later on this year. We're just going to invite you into this camp. These are the details, come to camp, and all that kind of stuff. So the girls can receive these emails and these letters and they go, holy crap, I've been selected. And I get to meet other girls that are also playing rugby at a higher level and go, hey, this is what I want to be in. But we don't even have that. We almost had that a few years ago when they invited something like 12, and I think Manawa last year they invited something like 7 girls, I think, but some of them were just playing club rugby and some of them were already left school but were under 18, so they invited them. But I want full girls, all in full first 15 rugby, all still at high school, just like the boys playing in these camps. Like, I don't know why we can't have that. I don't know why they don't give them the funding, because there are people that put in these places, but they just, I don't know, they probably just haven't given them the funding. I'm not saying that these people that are in these positions that can do that, they don't want to do it. I know that they want to do it, but it's whether they've been given the resources and funding to do it. And if we want to protect that brand of New Zealand rugby and have these girls being able to compete, we've got to be able to do that at under 18s before they anything else. And I chose my New Zealand secondary school girls team based on the fact that, okay, I know that there's no one to play. And if we can't go to Australia and play Australians' secondary school girls team, it's just like, all right, I would want them to play either under 19 teams here in New Zealand, or I would want them to set up our under 20s girls teams and then have our New Zealand secondary school teams play them. Because in my mind, I think if I set up my New Zealand secondary school girls team that I have, if I was to put them against any club rugby team in New Zealand, these girls would probably win, because all these girls that I chose, 90% of them were all in development for Farah Palmer Cup anyway. They were already playing against women. They were already better than most women. So if I was to put that team together to play anybody, it's just like, that's almost a Farah Palmer Cup team taking the field as all high school players. That's the team that I named. That's what I found. Now, if I can find that, why can't New Zealand Rugby do the same? So that these girls are more prepared. So they get to have the training. They get to have the coaches. They get to have the competitive levels lifted higher that they're at these camps. So they can look at other girls and go, holy crap, these girls are good too. I thought it was just me for a while. It was like, I play in an easier competition. Some of these women are good, but some of them are not. Because even for the women, like some women were good at rugby when they were young. They knew that there was no pathway, so they gave up rugby for a bit, and then they found like rugby's getting better, so they come back and they have to relearn everything again. So some of these women are still at the same level as all these high school girls, because they're going, well, we didn't have anything like this when I was younger. Then I went and had some babies, and I came back and I had my career, and I came back and I was like, oh shoot, this is a lot better than what I used to be at, and I was like, I need to catch up too. So women and high school girls are also all catching up kind of at the same time. Now, as great as that is, it doesn't actually answer the question or lift any standards higher for us when we look at what the Northern Hemisphere are doing and going, oh, we won't be able to match these guys. Now, my thing is, really, why can't we just do it in high school? What's the answer to that? Who's in charge of that to give us that answer? Because we have so much talent. I just think it's going to get stolen. They're just going to get better offers from the NRL. And it's going to happen. My thing too is that I know that there's NRL guys that are watching this, that are also following my website, because they do all the time, and I have NRL connections. I do. I have NRL guys that ring me on a fortnight basis to go, hey, Hirsch, how's this guy doing? Like, what are you thinking of this guy? Like, does he transition? Does his game work the same way that it would if he was here in the NRL? And then I give my opinion on that. So I have like a bunch of guys from the NRL. They talk to me a lot. I would say even more than what the rugby union does. Now, if you're wondering why they're able to find so many good players, ta-da, I'm one of those guys that give them the information. Because I've said all the time, I'm a player person first. I'm there for the player first. Same thing with these girls. I picked my New Zealand secondary school girls, and I know 100% that all these girls are going to get looked at by the NRL because of the context that I have, and that these guys are saying to the girls' development side, they go, hey, this guy Herschel, he's the one that does this. He's picked this. Go find out what these girls look like and how good they are. The NRL is going to do that. The NRL club for their women's side are going to go, oh, hey, there's this guy Herschel, he does this. Have a look at the team that he's going, just see what he found on them and see if they're going to be any good. That's the kind of thing that I was looking at. I was saying, I knew that if I made this team, NRL was going to look at it and then they're going to be like, oh shoot, Herschel chose the team. Oh, we'll just give it to our women's department and their development and their recruiting side, and we'll just let them have a look at them and see what they think of his selections. Same thing what they do with the boys. Now this has gone past an hour. That's past what I wanted to do, but so much frustration, so much questions that don't get answered, and I have a lot of what ifs when I think about first 15 rugby, boys and now girls, heaps of hypotheticals, because I feel like hypotheticals can be thought out a lot to the point where we can go, how come we can't try this? Why are we trying this? See what happens. Hypotheticals bring advancement to me. I think the discovery of hypotheticals and seeing if it actually works and if you can see where it goes actually brings some kind of resolve to it, and it may even work. It's the reason why we chant stuff. But anyways, let me know what you think as always. I'm still going to try and buy me a new laptop soon. I don't know when. Got to save up that money, but because it's starting to really annoy me. But anyways, Herschel from High School Top 200. Love you all. Peace. Later, bolt.